Well, hi, everyone. It's so good to see all of you here. Thank you for being here. I wanted to officially welcome you to the second installment of our Fall 2025 JAMI Career Panel series. This month's topic is Research Careers, Designing Your Path for the Funding Landscape Ahead. We know there's been a lot of uncertainty regarding research opportunities and funding, so we thought this particular topic was really both relevant and timely. My name is Yas Hardaway, and I oversee the Career Services Department at GSEP. And this program is a partnership between GSEP Career Services and Alumni Engagement. For those of you who are new to JAMI, you may be wondering, what is JAMI? JAMI is a Swahili term for community, and our JAMI Communities of Practice programs are really designed to provide up-to-date information in the fields of education and psychology. It's also designed to help you broaden your Pepperdine community, your Pepperdine network. In the fall, we have our JAMI career panels, which are moderated Q&A sessions. And in the spring, we have our JAMI career chats, which are interactive breakout room conversations. So let's take a look at our agenda for today. I'll be highlighting our learning outcomes, what we hope that you will gain out of our session, cover a few housekeeping items, and then turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Renee Dorn, who will do panelist introductions, and then a moderated Q&A followed by an open audience question opportunity as well. Feel free, though, as we move along, to put any of your questions or comments in the chat. We will then close out with some resources and give you an update on what is next. So what do we hope that you will gain from our session today? Our learning outcomes are really based on our departmental vision. Our vision is that we hope every graduate would have the clarity, the confidence, and the community to be able to access, thrive in, and transform the future workplace. So from our program today, we hope that you will gain additional clarity about the next step in your career planning. We hope that you will gain increased confidence in your ability to move forward towards your next career objective. And we hope to connect you with industry professionals from the Pepperdine community, right? A few housekeeping items. So this session is being recorded and will be posted on our GSEP YouTube playlist. So my colleague Franya will put the YouTube playlist link in the chat where you can see previous recordings as well too. She'll also put in the link our participant drive, and in our drive you'll be able to access the recording as well as the speaker lineup. So you'll have an opportunity to read through the different bios from our speakers. And then there are a number of different resources that we'll be sharing today, and we've also included those in the drive. We encourage you, if you can, to use the rename tool to include your first and last name so that we know who's in the room. If you're able to be on camera, we'd love to see your faces. We know that's not feasible for everyone, but if you are able to do so, we would love to see you. And then, as I mentioned earlier, feel free to add your questions and comments in the chat. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Renee Dorn, to introduce the panelists. Dr. Dorn?
Thank you so much, Yaz, and welcome everyone to our second JAMI session, as I like to call them, for this fall season. We always have some fantastic alumni who participate in our JAMI events, and today we have some wonderful alumni and experts in the field of research. So first, let me go ahead and introduce them before we get started in the discussion. Our first alum is Katie Carr. So welcome, Katie. Thank you for being a part of our discussion today.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. So Katie, tell us your background, your Pepperdine affiliation, and what you currently do today.
Absolutely. Thanks again. Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming. I'm so excited to have this discussion and conversation with you all. So I am an alum of GSEP in the clinical psychology MFT track program. I don't remember the date. 2012 is ringing out to me. So a number of years ago. I am in my 19th year working at Pepperdine. I currently serve as the Associate Provost in the Office of Research Grants and Foundation Relations, but my entire 19-year tenure has been supporting faculty, staff, and student research within the university and all 5, now 6 of its schools. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Katie. And you're going to hear a little bit more from her when we get into the discussion. Thank you so much for being here. Next, we have Marina Mills, Marina Mills, and she's another alum. Welcome, Marina.
Hi, how's it going?
Going good, good. Tell us about your background, your Pepperdine affiliation, and what you currently do.
Of course. So I graduated in 2020 with my master's in psychology from the GSEP program. So that was great. I can't believe it's already been 5 years. And currently, I'm a senior user experience researcher and CX lead at a global insurance company. And I'm happy to talk about that a little bit more later.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you, Marina. And so now we'll go to our next panelist, who is another alum from Grazia Dio. And this is Dr. Nina Kraft, who is also known as Dr. Neen. Welcome, Dr. Neen. Thank you for being with us.
Hi, I'm known as Dr. Neen, the Strategy Queen. My team and I help educated women experts build their personal and business brand confidence, cash flow, and connections using their research and expertise. I've been doing this work for over 40 years, and I'm connected to the GSEP through my mother, who graduated with her doctorate in educational leadership from Pepperdine. I'm also a Pepperdine alum. I completed the EMBA program in 2001. I received my doctorate in 2015 from Fielding Graduate University in media psychology, and that was my second doctorate. My first was in spiritual psychology, which was a natural transition from my undergraduate neuropsychology degree. I have multiple certifications and awards in business, leadership, nonprofit management, grant writing, publishing, and video production. And I'm also the author of multiple books. Lastly, I'm the founder of the U Society, THEEWE Society.com, and the creator of the November 8th Resharing Your Research Conference, where Pepperdine is an educational partner. And you can register at resharingresearch.com at no charge as a Pepperdine alum.
That's wonderful. So thank you, Dr. Neen, for being with us, and we will hear more from her during the discussion. And last but not least, we have Dr. Ellen Van Dam. Now, she may not be Pepperdine alum, but she's going to today be alumni adjacent. So welcome, Dr. Van Dam. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
So tell us a little bit about your background and what you currently do.
Yeah, thank you. So I have a PhD in criminology from Leuven University in Belgium. I came to the US a couple of years ago as a Fulbright postdoc at UCLA, and I stayed. I'm currently working as the founder of Field Research Coaching, where I train academics and professionals in conducting challenging and high-risk field research. And under that umbrella, I also offer one-on-one coaching for people in this area, but also for people who want to bring change to their career or explore different paths in life. On top of that, I'm also an adjunct professor at Weimar University, and I still have an affiliation to my previous university in Belgium. I have worked, both in academia and consultancy, so I know it's not always a straightforward path, so I'm very happy to share my experience here today.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us. So let's get started in the panel discussion. So the topic today is research careers. And for our programs, whether it's our master's programs or doctor programs, there is a research component. So how do we take, and I'm going to ask all of you this question because all of you are in research. So how do we take the knowledge that we gained from the programs that we graduated from and turn them into research careers? So I'm going to start with Katie. So tell us, how did you go about doing that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not sure that my personal experience is going to be the one that I would highlight for this. So I am excited, though, to hear from the other panelists the way they would maybe think about this. But just my experience in navigating the growth of research portfolios from different people over the years, I would say mentorship features incredibly highly. So in my experience working with whether it's students or even early career faculty, I think that their connection with former professors and very often potential research collaborators in the future has been just really beneficial. I think in terms of the work I do and seeking grant funding for different research projects, those I've worked with who are quite successful, their first experience in grant writing was maybe as a graduate research assistant on a funded project before they were a principal investigator or project director. And so I do think that I know that's something that GSEP does very well, encouraging mentorships between our faculty and our students. But I think that that's a really important thing to highlight and prioritize as you're thinking about this possible career step.
Okay, that's good to know. Mentorship, very important, very important. All right, Marina, so how did you get started in research? Because you're working for an insurance company doing this. So how did you transition into that?
I know it's a funny story. So I got my start in research while I was in my graduate program. I was research associate for the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles, working on a longitudinal study examining health outcomes of adolescents and marijuana in LA County. After that study ended, I pivoted into consumer insights, and I was able to bring the same qualitative and quantitative research research methodologies I had learned through my courses, kind of honed through being a research associate, and was able to leverage those for Mattel, doing consumer insights for them. And then from that, I was able to continue my growth and use these same research practices. And the nice thing about research is no matter the industry or the objective, the methodologies remain pretty consistent, being able to derive data-driven insights from real world experiences and translate those into something that can help improve an outcome. So I'm in insurance now, but I basically help bridge the gap between psychology, technology, and business for optimized experiences and more user-based strategies. So that's how I got from A to B. I know it doesn't seems kind of weird, but it makes sense when you talk it out.
Oh, no, that's fascinating, but that gives more insight into how you can go from research in the classroom and bring it into industry.
Yeah,
So thank you
absolutely.
for that. Dr. Neen, I'm going to ask you the same question. So how did you go from researching in your studies and bringing it into what you're doing today?
I hope that I'm not going to step on your future questions when I start answering this one about non-academic research grants and paths. Back in the day, when I was in school, there were many opportunities to do research, of course, with your mentors.
Mhm.
And I suggest that any students that are listening right now, they take advantage directly of those opportunities because those doors are going to be closed once you finish being a student. So with me, I use mentors, as it was mentioned earlier. I would not have been able to do any of the things I've done without having mentoring and guidance. And I think that's the most important aspect of all of this. My path was not linear. I think that most of us will say that, we bounced around. I have a lot that I can talk about what we do with the research to make it more user friendly. And I'm assuming that we're going to talk about that later. So right now I'll just leave it at that. That mentoring is the most important thing. And being able to speak up and share with people when you are available or interested in a specific topic and try to publish as often as possible. So when someone says, can you be an assistant, a research assistant for us on this particular project? Just raise your hand and say yes immediately. You can back out later if it doesn't turn out to be what you were expecting. But there's so much that you're going to learn from it. There are so many people that need to be on the team, and you need to know from each person what it takes so that when you're the lead, you know how to actually manage the team. So that's what I would say right there.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Dr. Van Dam, what about you? How did you transition from researching in the classroom and bringing it into industry?
Yeah, great question. To begin with, I never thought that I would do a PhD. Yeah, my parents don't have PhDs, they only have lower degrees. I always thought I would just work for an NGO or international relations or whatever. But then mentorship has been mentioned several times.
Mhm.
It was actually my master's supervisor who suggested I do a PhD. Fast forward, I was able to get a full scholarship, which is very important. And it is like the landscape is a bit different in Belgium. The full scholarship, you don't live like a poor PhD student. You can actually really just focus on research. And then I think a very important thing there is networking. During my 4 years of PhD, I was constantly networking because my main supervisor, he was just constantly networking and traveling everywhere and opening doors for me. And that then has led to so many connections that, for example, I worked as a consultant for UNDP in El Salvador. That was just through my network. I have applied, like many people, to thousands of jobs, but it was actually through like my network that somebody contacted me and was like, hey, can you do this work? So I would say, especially when you're in your PhD, take all the options you have. You have so many advantages. You can apply to so many funding, actually, to go to conferences, to go to places. Yeah, network, network, network.
Okay. I'm so glad you mentioned that. So I'm going to continue with you because you had mentioned scholarships, because while you were studying or while you were researching, you looked for scholarship and you looked for other funding sources. So this question will be for Dr. Van Dam and Dr. Neen. So what funding sources did you use or did you search for in order for you to continue the work that you were doing? Either one, Dr. Van Dam or Dr. Neen.
Okay, yeah, I can go first. Again, like if I did my PhD in Belgium, so obviously that's quite different. But I have created a list. I looked up some funding because a lot of people are now scared because maybe the US governmental funding has been cut. There's so many foundations, especially in the US. This is
Okay.
unique. Like you guys don't know how lucky you are. So I've created a list in my field and I'm going to copy it here in the chat. So this is more, yeah, I'm a criminologist, so social sciences. You guys these days we have ChatGPT, so just use it. Like back in my days, I had to like word to mouth look things up. One I want to highlight, I will paste a couple of other things. What I would really want to highlight, so there's still Fulbright, it still exists. Go for it if you can. It definitely changed my life. And then it's so interesting how students in the US are not aware of the Erasmus program. If anybody is, give me like a little emoji. This is open to American students too. So in Europe, everybody knows Erasmus. It's like an exchange program. You go study for a semester or a year in another country. American students can do this too. So they can go to Europe, study for their master's or PhD. So look it up. I'm sorry. I've pasted it in the chat now. During my PhD, I applied. So I had my full scholarship. So I could have said, I'm good. I'm not going to apply to anything else. Like, no, because we know after the PhD, there might be a gap. So I was applying for travel grants. I was applying, you know how academic societies, for me, it would be the American Society of Criminology. You also have the psychological one. You have so many. They all have divisions. Those divisions also give grants to go to conferences, to do research. So like, yeah, top up on your grants, I would say.
Okay, that's good to know. So look at foundations and grants. Okay. And then Dr. Neen, what about you? What were some of the resources that you found?
Okay, so I just want everyone to be really clear. I took an entrepreneurial path. So when you see the different sponsors and my mentorships, it's all through like a business umbrella. Although in the chat, I wrote down the TGCI, which is the Grantsmanship Center, Inc., and they have training. They also list all the grants available, and they would have meet and greets with the funders. So you could meet people who are the heads of the foundation, and they always want to have a one-on-one relationship with you. And so I also, I know it sounds like I keep saying, I also did this, I also did that, but because I started so many years ago, I would do a project and then expand, and then people would share with me, oh, since you did this, you might be interested in. So I actually learned how to be a grant writer, and I learned how to start a nonprofit organization. And this all came through mentoring. People would just come up to me and say, it looks like you're trying to do XYZ. Why don't we show you how it's actually done? And then they would show me step by step. I mean, I was interested in sharing with people when I was doing the spiritual psychology. I was doing programs for youth and working with kids in the prison system, and then working with people in communities. And people would just invite me to various opportunities, and they would say, did you know that you can get funded in this particular way? Oh, no, I did not. And then they would share with me. So the collaborations, the mentoring, those are extremely important. A lot of the times my sponsors were the ones who would tell me, because we're putting our name and logo and brand with you, we want you to be successful so that our brand doesn't tank. So we're going to show you exactly how you do this. So speaking up, being very clear, and I was going to talk about this later, but I always talked about goal setting. Be sure that you understand your be, do, have goals. Know who you're being. Understand what it is, what does it take for you to do that, to be that person, what things you have to do, and then what will you have at the end, keeping track of your results, and then adjusting if the person that you want to be or in your career, if you're not in alignment, then you need to adjust. And having mentors will help you get into realignment. And by asking people to point you into the direction, I'm the mayor of our city said, "Oh, I know lots of people who would like to fund your nonprofit organization." And so he gave me his, he just opened up his Rolodex and gave me a list of people. And next thing you know, I'm sitting in front of the the CEO, the CEO of one of the gasoline companies, and I don't know if you can see on there, we have Shell Oil, and we had Chevron, and they would just talk to me like a regular person and share with me how things work. And I would share with them what was on my mind and the goals that I had. When I would talk about what research I've done, which gives you the credibility, once you have your doctorate, everybody understands you've jumped through all the hoops and you have a lot to lose. So take advantage of the opportunity that, going through your education is going to position you with a lot of spotlight. Okay. People are looking to you as a leader and the expert. So make sure that you cover your ducks, put up ducks in the row, so to speak, and just share with people what your vision is. Be very clear about your goals, and don't be afraid to collaborate and make sure it's a win-win-win for everybody. But when it comes to the funding, I know that the funding's drying up for a lot of people in traditional research, but you can get corporate sponsors. We're going to be showing people in our conference how they can get careers as a researcher in corporate America, because people are saying, how come people with doctorates aren't looking at us and wanting to help us? I'm like, really? That's interesting. So there's a gap there. So just make sure that you're very clear about your goals and let people know, and speak in layperson's terminology. So they actually know what the heck you're talking about. We're so used to speaking at conferences and being a certain way. I had to become a motivational speaker because people kept saying, "What are you talking about?" Or they would say to me, "You're really talking about this." I'd say, "Oh, I am? Yes, you are." I had no idea. So you have to learn the vocabulary. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much for all of that information, Dr. Neen. From that, Katie, I want to go to you because you do a lot of research and grants and work with foundations. So if someone was interested in getting a grant, how would they go about doing that? How would they start with, I guess, writing a grant, or what do they need to do? How would they go about even starting to write a grant?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And so, yeah, that's my day-to-day work. As I mentioned, I'm the head of the grants office. It's a long titled office, but grants office will do. And so I would say first thing, our office primarily supports faculty and staff, but we do welcome student consultations with us just to help you get the ball rolling and offer some guidance and support as you're starting off. So if you are a Pepperdine student, know that our office is happy to chat with you about ways to kind of kickstart things. I think some of the things that have already been discussed are very helpful. So as Dr. Neen was saying, being really clear about what you're looking to do. In my experience, one of the biggest challenges, sure, there are landscape funding, grant funding landscape challenges. I would say, while they're certainly quite unique at the moment, in the grants world, we are used to shifting priorities from funders, whether it's the government or it is private, right? So even private foundations can shift their focus. There have been many times where Pepperdine University has received regular funding from a foundation, and we've gone back to them and they've said, as a result of the sort of crisis in, healthcare professionals, we've decided to shift our funding toward those avenues now. And so they've gone from like education to this shift to health. So those things, they do happen. So I don't want to downplay some of the things that are going on, but I do think we have
Right.
to remember that those shifts do happen. And so not to be too discouraged. And it also means that just one of the bigger challenges I find is that matchmaking, finding the funder that is going to be a good match with what you would like to do, you and hopefully maybe partners that you have. And so I would say that that to me always ends up being the biggest challenge, because once you're clear about what it is you're wanting to work on and the funder has been clear about what they want to support, if you can find that match, it does make it easier. It's one of those things too. The more you grant write, the easier it gets. And so I think it's one of those, I find that the most successful grant writers are those that are full of curiosity and they do have that lifelong learner mentality where even a
Mhm.
submission and a rejection is an opportunity to get feedback from expert reviewers that can, again, that feedback can be, well, sure, it can feel, a little bit discouraging. You've put so much into a submission, but to get
Right.
that kind of feedback, in a lot of times it's going to be positive. It just was just not quite there. And so if you approach it in that way, I think that it can be a really invigorating and in fact strengthen you as a researcher. So that's sort of when I say to get started, I would say our office, I'll drop it in the chat, but for
Okay.
Pepperdine faculty, staff, and students, we do have a subscription to InfoEd Spin, which you can sign up for a profile, put in your research interests, and it will, at whatever regularity you request, it can send you funding opportunities. And so starting to just see what is out there and what areas, I think it can just be a helpful place to start. And so, yeah, I think that matchmaking hurdle can be quite challenging. And then the other part I would say is definitely work on your ability to speak your work to the layperson. As Dr. Neen said, it can be very difficult if you're too much in the weeds of your work, depending on who your audience is, you might really miss an opportunity. And then the last thing I would say, I know I'm saying a lot of things, but just to double down on this idea of putting yourself out there and networking opportunities. I just had a Pepperdine faculty and staff member come into my office, renowned in her field of psychology, has been a leader at Pepperdine for a long time. She kind of panicked, came into my office yesterday afternoon and said, I think I might be able to get some money. And I was like, oh, and she's like, but it's not, I don't know if it's a great, it just, someone mentioned our program during a speech about something else. They mentioned a program at Pepperdine, and a community college in the audience who has money to spend down went, oh, I'd be interested in that. And they've asked her to submit a budget. So you don't know when these opportunities are going to come. And so taking advantage, as everyone else has said, to network, to connect with people, to share what you're doing. I do think I've seen it in action that it can sometimes be just that hurdle to get over. And then once you get a grant, it can be easier to get more. That's one of those things too. Like the more grants you get, the more you're going to get. And so just kind of breaking through that, I think can be half the battle.
I definitely would like to second what Katie just mentioned. When we were doing our grants for our nonprofit organization, Pacific Bell sat down with me and they said, the fact that you actually asked the question of what do we need, and the missions should match. So I created a training program that's under the umbrella of charity partnering. I put the link in the chat and you can see my video of how I went around. I feel like I have another website for that. Right? So charitypartnering.com. And, I had been doing this research about women and domestic abuse, and I wrote a book. And after researching, and interviewing all the people so that I would go in the right direction, and people started saying, can you come speak about it? And we'd like to fund you, et cetera. So as you get out there and you get funding for one thing, people are able to test. So like what Pacific Bell was saying to me, we are going to give you this amount. And if you do well with it and actually hit your goals, and then because the missions seem like they're going to match, then we'll give you this much. And they kept on increasing the amount of the budget. And I can understand about your friend being a little bit nervous, because if you've never had someone approach you where you were always having to be on the begging, you kind of say like, what's going on here? And then you obviously you think that they're going to have these audacious goals that you might not be able to meet. But having the confidence in what your message is extremely important. And I'd like to suggest to people, create an additional personality, because most of us that do research are introverts. And, we talk about Beyonce getting out there being Sasha Fierce. So she's a creator and writer, and then she has to create her extrovert personality. That's the same thing with us who are researchers and students. You have to be able to get out there and be this additional person. And I suggest people go through Toastmasters, because you're going to have to learn how to do presentations anyway for your research. So you might as well learn how to be a good speaker. And then you can parlay that information into being a public speaker and getting paid. I remember once someone said to me, well, you have a PhD, so we pay PhDs $10,000 per speech. I said, wait a second. Most PhDs are told that they're not going to get paid for their speaking. Someone else is going to take their information and get paid, and they have to pay their own way to that conference. So I said, so in corporate America, you guys pay us, and in our own fields, we don't get paid. We're in the hole, So you can parlay that into books, and if you're constantly curious and questioning, those kind of skills are going to be helping you to become a good researcher as well as a good entrepreneur. So I think that that's one of the things we're going to talk about later.
Thank you, Dr. Neen. Thank you, Katie, too. Very good information. Marina, I want to sort of piggyback off of that. We're talking about corporations. So you're in the corporate arena when it comes to research. So what are corporations looking for? When you were able to go into these different positions, what were you presenting to them for them to say, okay, we want you in our corporation?
Yeah, so I think, first and foremost, corporations are interested in protecting their investment and remaining competitive and capturing market share. I think the way to kind of align yourself with this is to prove out the impact that your research can have. So being able to supply data-driven insights that can help make them more competitive, that can improve the experience of their customers or improve their understanding of their customers. Anything that helps align their objectives with impact and outcome. I think that's how, I was able to kind of take research, academic research, and pivot that into a corporate setting. And then I also wanted to call out that part of that aspect of wanting to see impact is they often want to see some sort of portfolio or history of you being able to have impact. So for those of you who are just starting your research careers, something that was helpful for me was to volunteer. There is a website called Catch a Fire. I can link it in the chat where you can volunteer, which is a great way to, one, give back, to build out your portfolio, have some impact, and also be able to experience different kind of research objectives. So I would also say don't be afraid to be creative when it comes to exploring how impact can look different across different industries, different objectives, and being able to kind of take that, gather all that experience up, and be able to present it and make yourself a really competitive and compelling candidate.
Thank you. You know what? All of you have given us quite a bit of very good information, and I've been seeing messages going in the chat. So hopefully everyone is grabbing onto all this information that is being given to us today. So thank you. I have one last question before I pass everything over to Stephanie for the group questions. So if you could go back and give your graduate self one piece of advice about designing a sustainable research career, what would that piece of advice be? And I'm going to go to each one of you. So let's see. I'll start with Dr. Van Dam.
Thank you. I think that's a great question. And two things when we think about sustainability. There's financial sustainability on the one hand, but there's also the mental sustainability. It cannot be ignored how much of an impact research has. So one of my messages would be, don't only listen to your mind, especially as academics, we think we're just here. Also listen to your body. And I think for myself, the main message, I wish I had spent more time outside of academia before starting my PhD, just to get more practical real life experience so that my research would be more meaningful. So that would be my message.
Wonderful. Thank you. Marina, what piece of advice would you have given yourself?
I would say to stay open and curious. Initially, when I was in the GSEP program, I wanted to pursue a PhD, and I had my blinders on. I would say don't be afraid to take those blinders off and be curious. I also do consulting kind of on the side. I help connect international clients with North American insights, and being able to just enjoy being curious and enjoy learning and enjoy the ride and be open-minded, I think is what I would tell my past self, not to be so rigid.
Wonderful, wonderful. Katie, what piece of advice would you give?
Yeah, mine's not going to be surprising because I'll connect it back to what I said was the most important thing. And I guess it was because of a lesson learned for me, but the mentorship part, I wish that I had sought that out more specifically and intentionally. I think I have just been very lucky and blessed, to be honest with you, that the people that have come into my life are natural mentors. And so they didn't need to have that direct ask. And so I would say that in my experience at Pepperdine, I think those are the kind of people that we bring here to serve in roles as educators, that they are natural mentors. But I do recognize that it has to be a two-way street. I think I've
Right.
done that better since graduating, but I do think it's something that if I went back, I would try to do that better. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And Dr. Neen, what piece of advice would you give students?
Okay, well, I'd say, as I mentioned before, get on board with as many projects as you can because it's never too early to start planning your career. And if you have those goals really clear, then you know exactly why you're doing each thing that you're doing. And as you are starting to network with other people, that's something my mentors made sure that I did. They said, keep, and now it's so convoluted, but make sure that you have your own database of people's personal contact information so that if they leave their position, you'll be able to still contact them. Make sure that you share your personal stories so that they have a personal connection with you because people don't only want to see you as a student or as whatever. They're going to just ask, it's natural, like Katie was mentioning, it's natural for people to want to mentor you if they have dreams and aspirations and they see you as a vehicle that can help that happen, then they need to know that you're open to those suggestions and that it's not that formal conversation all the time that's going to happen. And it can just blossom and be so amazing if you open yourself up, as I think was Marina just saying that about opening yourself up to opportunities that come along. Don't be so rigid. Just
Right.
and we've all done that when we were doing our doctorates. We started on this path and people said, well, you want to get PH done. So you might need to shift a little bit and be more open. And then let be a little bit flexible so that it can be applicable to real life situations. So yeah, getting on board, collaborating, networking, having conversations with people, and don't be afraid to share what's really on your mind.
Thank you. Thank you to all of the panelists for all of the wonderful information that you gave to everyone today. We're going to keep the questions coming because I'm going to pass you off to Stephanie because the audience has some questions for you. So, Stephanie, I'm passing it to you.
Thank you so much to all the panelists and of course Dr. Renee Dorn for being our wonderful moderator for this panel discussion. So there are a few questions in the chat that I kind of wanted to touch base on. We have a question from Jordan. Anyone with maternal mental health experience or when you have to navigate IRB for research? So it's a very niche question. We may or may not have some expertise on that, but if any of the panelists would like to answer that question or maybe steer Jordan in the right way. Okay, I
I'm
see the
happy to. So I'm happy to. I mean, if it's the IRB at Pepperdine, I currently serve as a reviewer on both of the IRB committees at Pepperdine. So certainly, is the question around at what point in searching for grant funding do you look for IRB approval, or could you just, sorry, Stephanie, I might have missed that detail.
It doesn't really say. It's
Okay,
pretty
general.
plain, general, yeah.
Got it. Okay. Well, I would just say that, and I'm happy to post in the chat, we've got, in terms of timelines for IRB review, we've got pretty specific timelines for what you should anticipate in terms of submitting, getting feedback for one or two cycles that you might go through for IRB review. You should not start any research until you have that IRB approval if it's with human subjects. So that's how I would answer that question. I will say that in terms of grant funding, typically a grant funder there'll be a question that asks whether or not it will involve human subjects, and you would let them know whether it does or doesn't. Most do not require a IRB approval at the time of submission, but would want to see it at award acceptance. They'd want to see an IRB approved number on it. So I hope that, and if there's more specific questions about the IRB process at Pepperdine, please reach out to me. I'm happy to chat offline as well.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. We also have one question from Dr. Rochelle Lyon. Does anyone have any specific experience with policy analysis and/or advice for pivoting into that arena? Thank you. Okay, we may not have any.
This might be a reach of an answer, and I would look to my panelists too, but this, where my mind went, is the like evaluation part of some studies. What I've often seen in my experience writing with our Pepperdine researchers is that there are times when a funder is expecting, for example, like if it's a program that you're looking to fund and get grant funding for, program activities, there's a bunch of partnerships and maybe on the ground like conference things and a lot of event planning and programmatic things like that. There will be an expectation from a funder that there's a robust evaluation process for the efficacy and results and sort of that side of it. And there are times where the principal investigator or project director that's submitting, that's not their area of expertise. So that's one thing where I have found that I think that coming into a project when you're coming out of your PhD or master's program and you have a lot of good experience in that analysis side of things, that could potentially be a good stepping stone. That might be very left from what that question was getting at, but where my head went is I'll often be working on a grant proposal with someone and I'll say, you can't just do like a short post survey. The funder wants something more robust in terms of evaluation of the work. And so maybe we should go to a social scientist or someone like that that does that work more regularly that could come on as a co-investigator. And again, that might not totally answer that question, but that's where my mind went.
Thank you so much. Going back to some of the questions here on the chat. And I think this might be a good question for you, Dr. Van Dam. We have a student that recently graduated our global leadership program and they relocated to Canada. Based on conversations with local professional, it seems my experience is not fully recognized in the Canadian job market. Can you please share your advice on how to move forward, whether I should continue pursuing jobs or consider a postdoc position in Canada? So I think this is a little relevant since I know you went to school in Europe.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I absolutely feel you. So I did my PhD at one of the top 40 universities in the world, yet in the US, it will be all like, yeah, people don't know the university, and so they're like, oh, it was not in the US, so it must not be good. And I'm like, okay, interesting. So yeah, ignorance is a bit annoying when you relocate. Postdoc is definitely an option. Getting your foot into a university to start building a network there. And I would say, like, also what I've been trying to do now is just like pivot a bit towards other fields. Like, is there anything else that you're interested into doing? I am absolutely enjoying that I am not pursuing necessarily the tenure track path. I can always do that at some later point, but I'm trying to build my career doing other things with the consultancy, which is something you can do for sure with your skills in Canada. And I would highly advise doing that, especially, yeah, if you did a global leadership and change program, I would definitely look at that.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Dr. Van Dam. I think consulting is a great advice and maybe a stepping stone, right, for bigger and better things. And I think going back to what Marina was saying, right, being open and curious to other opportunities. We have another question. This
I
is
just
from
wanted to jump in there and say they could also look at volunteering, and that's how you can also see the playing field in different countries. I remember when I did the Pepperdine program in London, and that was some of the conversations that we had over there about how do you traverse. And yes, Dr. Ellen, the ignorance is definitely there when people don't recognize, what do they call it, the ugly American. That's the mentality. But whoever is going into Canada, definitely if you start with volunteering, and there's some organizations here in the United States that are international, and so it's a lot easier to find those volunteer opportunities. And when you're in a volunteer situation with nonprofit organizations, they are very, very open. Even though the door often closes once you're no longer a student, volunteering, that door opens up again, and people see you as a resource and they will help you navigate. So good luck.
Thank you, Dr. Neen, for adding that tidbit of reminding us how important it is to continue to network. And if that's through volunteering, that is also a very plausible option for so many of us. And just to end, one more last question. This is from Ezekiel. This is my first year in PhD Global Leadership and Change. Is it too early for research, writing, and funding?
As I was mentioning before, it's never too early to start your career. If you know somebody, ask them specifically. I mean, you have classes, you can ask your professors, and if they don't have something specific for you to work on, they know other professors who could possibly help you. And, as Miss Marina was talking about earlier, be flexible, open, and curious because that's how it gets started. Sometimes you start over here, you think you're going here, and then you end up there and then this, but you might end up where you thought originally, but at least you've explored everything and it makes you a well-rounded person, and that makes you more valuable when you get out into the working world.
Yes, thank you so much for that. Just to sum everything up, lean in on your mentors, find mentorships, network, like Miss Marina mentioned, staying open and curious, like Dr. Ellen Van Dam mentioned, the opportunities of being able to pivot a little bit, if you're going outside of the country where you studied, and like Dr. Neen said, right, being sure of what your goals are and be able to communicate that to the lay person so that whoever's hearing might be another opportunity for you to get funding or to go into a different field of research of your interest. Thank you so much, all the panelists. Everyone was amazing. Thank you for all your information. We're going to go ahead and pivot a little bit, and we are going to hand it over to Gary Younger, who is actually one of our enrollment coordinators, and is just going to give you a 2-minute spiel.
Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you to everybody for your joining us and participating today. As Stephanie said, I'm Gary Younger, Enrollment Services Officer at Pepperdine's Graduate School of Education and Psychology. I'm one of 6 in the department, covering 17 programs here that encompass master's degrees and doctorate degrees in psychology and education. I personally cover the Master of Science in Applied Behavior Analysis and our doctorate in clinical psychology program. My colleagues cover the other 15 programs offered here for our in-person division. We also have an online division. This is a separate division from in-person with other advisors associated. We follow up with inquiries for our programs. We cover the application process. We review applications. If you'd like more information for my programs, again, Master of Science in Applied Behavior Analysis and Doctorate in Clinical Psychology, I can be reached at gary.younger@pepperdine.edu. My direct line is 310-568-2334. If you'd like information for any of our other programs, you can go to our website at gsep.pepperdine.edu or contact me directly and I'll be happy to refer you to my colleagues. There are links for our programs on the website. So all you have to do is go to our website if you want any information regarding those programs. With that, I'm going to pass it off to Usman. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Gary. So, as part of our vision, which is that every GSEP graduate will have the clarity, confidence, and community to access, thrive in, and transform our future workplace, our commitment to promoting access also includes being able to ensure that our graduates have access to our resources and services from an equitable lens and to foster a sense of community and belonging for each of our graduates, including you, while being able to honor each of your unique backgrounds and identities. And as part of our resources referenced earlier, we have some funding opportunities we've highlighted in terms of grants, scholarships, as well as other opportunities, including awards. So there's one by the American Psychological Association for doctoral students pursuing research. We also have some funding opportunities highlighted by McNair, which is a federally funded program for supporting individuals and communities from underrepresented backgrounds. And then we also have one highlighted some funding opportunities, including grants and scholarships from the American Psychological Foundation. And this is all included in your participant drive under our shared folder. Thank you, and I'll pass it over to
It'll be me.
Yeah.
Thanks, Osman. Yes, thank you so much, Osman. I just wanted to highlight a few of the resources that were shared. As Dr. Neen mentioned, there's an upcoming conference and graciously granting free access for Pepperdine. It's the Resharing Research Zoom conference. So we'll put the link again in the chat and just wanted to encourage you all to check it out. It will be a great opportunity for networking. Also, in our resource list, you'll see mentioned GSEP Center for Global Partnerships and Learning. And the Center for Global Partnerships and Learning provides a number of different resources: conference, publication opportunities, webinars related to research and how to get started. And specifically, I wanted to highlight the call for proposals. So GSEP is really proud to be partnering with the New Delhi Institute of Management for the 7th Annual International Symposium on Ethical and Sustainable Leadership. So we'll put in the chat the conference guidelines. And so for those of you who are interested in submitting a proposal, this is a great opportunity to do that through GSEP. All right, and now I'll pass it over to my colleague, Nadine.
Thanks, Yas. So just wanted to mention, we always appreciate your feedback. And if you were to scan the QR code on the screen, it will take you to a very brief survey on Handshake. Please take a moment to do that. We would really appreciate that. And anyone who fills that is included in an opportunity drawing for an Amazon gift card. And now, looking forward to what's next. So we have one more installment of our Jammy series for this term in the fall. And the last topic that we are going to cover is to doctorate or doctorate to determine if and when a doctoral program is right for you. And I think it really does go hand in hand with today's topic on research. Many people who do research or are in academia often have a doctoral degree, although not necessary. But so if you are interested in pursuing a PhD, a PsyD, an EDD, or you're just not sure and you're debating staying at the master's level, please join us, because we will have people on every one of those pathways to share their experience and to talk about what it's been like for them, and that might provide you with some clarity. So it's November 19th at 12 p.m. You can register via Handshake, and it'll be on Zoom again. So see you all then.
Stephanie.
Yes, and please stay connected with the GSEP across all of our social media platforms and follow us on LinkedIn to engage with fellow thought leaders, connect with today's panelists, and network with colleagues. Your next collaboration could just be one connection away. So follow GSEP today.
Thank you. And now, for those who are willing or interested, we will close out with our participant Zoom photo. So I'll turn it over to Mindy.
Yes, thank you, Yas, and thank you everyone for staying till the end. We just like to take the time before Yas closes us out to do a group photo. And I'm going to count to 3, and if you like, you can select your favorite emoji or effect so that we can have a very colorful photo together. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Group photo. Perfect. Thank you. I took a few. Yes, I'll pass it back to you.
All right. Well, thanks again. A very special thank you to our panelists. We have so many resources now collected on this topic. And again, you have access to those so that you can go back. You will also have access to this recording. I know there was a lot of information shared, so you're welcome to go back and look at it and share it with others as well too. And just thanks to each of our panelists for taking time out of your very busy schedule to share your insight and wisdom with our community. It makes such a difference that you would give back in this way. And we just want you to know how much we appreciate it. And thanks to all of you who showed up to learn and to be curious and to gather resources that would support your career development. So we look forward to seeing you in November. Thanks again, everyone. Bye-bye.